Good afternoon, all. I would like to introduce the speaker of this session, Dr. Ujjwala Tathe. She is an associate professor in English Literature and Language at Mahila Mahavidyalaya, Kharat, Maharashtra. She has been teaching at UG and PG level since 1993. Areas of her interests are new literatures, children's literature, and Afro-American literature. She has done PhD in children's literature, for which she was awarded 2-year UGC Teacher Fellowship under Faculty Improvement Program. She has been awarded MPhil in Afro-American feminist literature. She has published extensively in the research journals. She is a treasurer of English Language Teachers Association of India, Satara chapter, Maharashtra, and also a member of ELTAI reading movement. She is a researcher, guide, and a course writer. She also participates actively in gender sensitization programs. I would like to request the speaker to handle this session on reading beyond the text. Ma'am, have a good time, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Indusudin. Indusudin, can you display my slides? Yeah, thank you. Greetings to the participants, office bearers of ELTAI India and the host college, SREC Chennai. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this 8-day FDP, Reading Back to Basics. Since last few days, we are all listening to an exhaustive discussion on reading skills, strategies, habits, different modes of reading, and so on. Today, I will be talking on one more way of looking at reading a text, that is reading beyond text. What I mean by reading beyond text is not limiting our reading to the text only or to the knowledge we get from the text itself, but expanding the horizons of our understanding and imagination by reading other texts, fiction, non-fiction, associated with the text we are reading. Undoubtedly, it requires our involvement in the entire reading experience. It also requires developing an understanding of the skill of reading beyond the text, which can be cultivated over time by the habit of reading. I would like to quote Sir Francis Bacon here. He says, I quote, "Some books should be tasted, some devoured, but only a few should be chewed and digested thoroughly," unquote. I will be talking on such texts. My major focus will be on fiction. I have taken few texts for discussion. Actually, there can be comprehensive discussion on many books, fiction, non-fiction, belonging to various genres, and many texts are available on varied platforms, social platforms included. Okay, when we talk about reading, actually, the usual discussion goes to, do people read? And many of us say that people do not read nowadays. And generally, when we complain, particularly about the young generation, and we say that young generation does not read. Many of us might not agree with this argument because varied social platforms are available to the youth today, and they are very much active on it. They read, sometimes they respond to it, but the question is, what do they read? And whether their reading prompts them to go for more reading to comprehend and support whatever they read. I would go further. Do they fact check it? What we generally see is most of them do not. Okay. The writers do their job and leave their books to us to reflect upon it. The reflection depends upon, again, what do we read? How do we read? Do we understand it? And to what extent? And do we need to widen our understanding? Okay, certain books make us reflect upon them in a mature way. So what is mature reflection? It is a spirit of inquiry where the questions are asked to the text to appreciate it in its entirety and to know more about the referred things in the text. However, the appreciation or the analysis of a text is determined by from which background a reader comes, his or her literary skills, interests, affiliations, and so on. One more important thing is literacy today requires not only the ability to read proficiently or having a good vocabulary, but it expects the readers to understand not only the literal representations in the text, that is characters, setting, events, all those things in the text, but also to construct deeper meaning of the text. Okay, let's see what does text mean. The word text is derived from the Latin word textus, which means woven, as in a fabric or structure. This idea further suggests that the composition of any text is interwoven with previous resources that give it a particular texture. Another rendering of the text is it is a multi-dimensional space, a collage where various discourses or voices speak across the text. This implies that a text cannot be taken as an isolated entity, as no text can have a unitary textual voice. It has a bearing of other texts. It presupposes multiple sources, and hence it is open to new and wide-ranging interpretations. In reading process, by linking the text with other text, either by borrowing or transforming or intersecting, we form our own meaning of the text. And this is how we can see the text in a larger context. Let's see how the process happens. Okay, so while reading a text, we take insights from the current text, that is the text we are reading. We recall our own experiences, or we revisit the text we have read in the past and form our understanding. Then loop the perception back to understand the current text. On the basis of this, we can say that the text does not derive its meaning from itself, but from other texts. What I want to say is, if the reader refers other text or texts, the reading becomes more meaningful. In this sense, any reading is intricately bound to a larger dialogue which has connections to the past, present, and future. Let's take one example. If I'm reading a book, Follow the Rabbit-Proof Fence, it is a novella, and it is written by an Australian Aboriginal author, Doris Pilkington, alias Nugi Girimara. The novel is an amazing story of courage and faith of three young half-caste girls. Now, to understand the novel, I will certainly look for the invasion of Australia by the British settlers, its impact on the Aboriginal culture, emergence of the stolen generation, for which Australia is apologetic about today. So this peripheral information will help me to understand the novel in a better way. Okay, this approach towards, let's see, okay, this approach towards reading makes our reading conscious and critical, as it connects us to the other relevant texts, and the insights we get extends our vision, as well as it raises additional questions in our mind. And naturally we give emphasis on meaning making rather than on the technicalities of language. This kind of reading helps us to see through the text rather than just go through the text. It is an exercise, I would say, to confirm something or to round out our thinking. It is an exercise of considering what other viewpoints are available and possible other than the one proposed by the author. I would call it an effective way of reading, which leads us to finding joy in the reading as well. So finding resources beyond the text and exploring information associated with the text, in fact, is determined by the interest of the readers, of course. That is, from which angle they would like to take their reading further. Let's take an example of Khalid Hosseini's Kite Runner. The story takes place in Kabul, Afghanistan. Today we can relate the book with whatever is happening in Afghanistan. The only difference is the book refers to Taliban one phase. Okay, when I go beyond my reading of this book, I inquire about the culture of Afghanistan, the rivalry between two major ethnic groups, Pashtun and Hazara. And this reveals that there is a friction between the powerful and the exploited. Pashtuns are powerful over there. I will also inquire about the pre and post revolutionary Afghanistan, that is before and after the entry of Talibanis, its impact on the lives of the people, the sexual exploitation of adolescent boys and women, the fleeing of people. So there are so many things to inquire at a socio-political and cultural, emotional and psychological level. Okay, what I want to claim is a single book can lead us to more of reading of resources because it arouses our interest in knowing more about it. I would share my own experience with this book. That is, after finishing this book, I like this book. And after finishing it, I read another Khalid's book, Thousand Splendid Suns. It is the voices of three generations of Afghan women and their remarkable resilience in a war-torn Kabul under the Taliban regime. The title of the book is very catchy. And it is taken from wonderful lines of Josephine Davis's translation of a book, Kabul. Translation of a poem, Kabul, which was written in 17th century by an Iranian poet, Sayyid Tabrizi. And the lines go like this. Every street of Kabul is enthralling to the eye. Through the bazaars Karwa of Egypt pass. One could count the moons that shimmer on her roofs and the thousand splendid suns that hide behind her walls. That is, if we investigate, so if something strikes us, we can investigate and we can find some interesting things about the books. Okay, moreover, we can go beyond reading books, which have adapted into films. And we can compare such books and their film adaptation, because Kite Runner is adapted into a film with the same name. Both the forms have their own beauty. Well, it's another area of research. So such kind of critical or analytical stance also makes our reading more active, conscious, more profound, complex, enjoyable, when it engages us not only with the content of the text, but when it creates an urge in us to explore the references that text relates to. This kind of self-reflection prompts us to go for the experiences, assumptions, knowledge, and perspectives we can bring to the text. In this process, we start with an open mind, but tend to interrogate the text, raise objections, analyze the evidence, and reflect thoughtfully about the text, and try to see what is not said in the text, which is usually more important than what is said in the text. So the intense reader in us asks questions, highlight key points, takes notes, underlines important ideas, thinks deeper about an idea that strikes us. And in this flow, we don't read for the sake of reading, but to understand deeply. In fact, the ability to read enables the inquiring mind to have more meaningful transactions with the text. And the reader in us enjoys being inquisitive, and ultimately it gives us a feeling that, yes, I have read the text, or I have read the book. So in this process, we as readers become learners, researchers, and intellectuals, critics, who wish to investigate the text, who has an inquiring turn of mind, who is eager for knowledge, curious to
Dear participants, kindly stay online. The speaker will join soon.
Okay. Actually, I don't know since. Oh, sorry.
Ma'am, now you could continue, please.
Oh, sorry for that. I don't know what I was actually discussing, but let's see. So in this process, that is in this reading process, we as readers become learners, researchers, intellectuals, critics, who investigate the text, who has an inquiring turn of mind, who is eager for knowledge, curious to acquire new information. And this very perspective makes us approach the text with curiosity, and ultimately to form our own opinion, to take our own stand about the text, which again is an important factor in reading. Because when we choose not to take a stand, eventually we lose an ability to question everything around us and just accept the things as they are. Otherwise, we just blindly follow others' opinions. Okay, one may ask, is it really essential for us to be inquisitive reader? And if we are, then why does that matter? Yes, it matters a lot, I think, because questioning is the cornerstone of inquiry. The interrogation done instinctively or purposefully before, during, and after we read helps us to feel recognized knowledge gaps and to clear out doubts. They trigger a basic questions to the text. Actually, they will vary depending upon the text, its context, our interest, etc. Let's see the questions. These are a few basic questions an inquisitive reader can ask to the text. That what is the author trying to say or prove? How can I link this piece of knowledge to different text, topic or subject? How can I explore the implicit or explicit information given in the text? What does a particular message or event mean? What is the position of the author? So this approach, there can be many more questions actually. This approach undoubtedly broadens our scope of reading, understanding, and opens up new avenues of reading. Okay, let's see how how our reading environment widens. This is a graphical presentation. So the inner circle shows the environment created by the author in the text, which is traceable. Plot, theme, conflicts, character, setting, etc. That we can trace. While the outer circle extends to all that is remote and outside the textual environment. Hence, this is open for exploration. I would take here Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan to explain this idea more. Many of us might have read this novel, Train to Pakistan. It is a novel based on partition of Indian subcontinent. So when I read Train to Pakistan, my reading does not limit to the traceable sphere the author has created. That is the people of fictitious village Mano Majra, the love between a Sikh boy and a Muslim girl, people from both the newfound countries migrating, and the references to violence, and so on. I read with rapt attention, and while reading, I'm curious to know many more things connected directly or indirectly with the text and what the text is portraying. I dig in the details to find the roots of it. And for this, I read or I go beyond the text and I refer to the books which give me an authentic information of the history of partition, the end of East India Company, the takeover of India by British Queen, the rule of British over British India for more than 200 years, the freedom struggle across the Indian subcontinent, freedom fighters, formation of Pakistan, stands of political leaders of the time, the dislocation of people from both the countries, the problem of abandoned children and women both the countries faced, the participation of women in the freedom struggle, and many more actually. So while reading this, I come across a well-researched book called, the title of the book is Borders and Boundaries. It is published in 1998, written by Ritu Menon and Kamla Bhasin. And also Sukrita Paul Kumar's book, Narrating Partition, Texts, Interpretations, Ideas. So these books tell me that some of the women still reside in the northern part of India and they have their own stories to tell. But many of them do not wish to recall the past. So they are the women actually who, I understand that they are the women who were used as instruments of honor and power by the communities involved in the violence. If I go beyond this, I refer to the feminist studies on women in partition. And what I read is their narratives are absent under the cover of larger narratives and in the written history of India. However, I find that though they are absent in the larger narratives, their narratives are intensely recorded in the literatures of or in the books by authors like Chaman Nahal, Kushwant Singh, Manohar Malgaonkar, Bapsi Sidhwa, Saadat Hassan Manto, Bhishma Sahani, Lalitambika Antharjanam, Ishmat Chugtai, many, as well as poets like Amrita Pritam, Ahmed Fayaz, etc. Actually, we can go on exploring many more things. This is as the canvas of our learning enlarges. Every aspect of it gives us a different understanding. Ultimately, of many things, what I understand is because after reading the book, what is my understanding is also important. What is the reader's understanding is what the reader understands from the book is also important aspect of reading. So what I understand is or realize is, as Abdul Kalam says in his Ignited Minds, that our freedom certainly did not come as a gift. So we all have responsibility to protect it, honor it, respect the principles for which our freedom fighters sacrifice their life. And what more I learn when I reflect upon it, what more I learn is what happened 74 or so years back is the past now. And we must move ahead, learning lessons from it. Okay, this is how the reading process goes ahead. Okay, I'll take one more example of a Black American writer. Black American writer, novel The Bluest Eye. She is the first Black American writer Nobel Prize in 1993. So it is a story of Piccola, a black girl, and she's consistently regarded as ugly because of her dark skin, and ultimately she goes mad. So Morrison addresses the issue of compelling desire to confirm the white values, which result in frustration, and eventually it incapacitates a Black woman to extent that her sense of identity gets lost. The intense reading prompts us to explore the history of Blacks in America, their exploitation, slavery, the slave narratives, the Black movement. I also noticed that the song We Shall Overcome, which I have been singing since my school days, is a motivational song of the Blacks during the civil rights movement. Then I also explore what Harlem Renaissance is, because it has impacted the Black literature. Then I also explore the Black feminist movement, and is it different from white feminist movement? Then Alice Walker's concept of womanism, and so on. We can make our investigation more intense by comparing it with Dalit literature and investigate the similarities and differences in the literary movement of both Black and Dalit literature. Examine how power is exercised among the people, who dominates, who resists, and who takes action for individual or collective benefits, and so on. I also learned that the nursery rhyme, it's very interesting. The nursery rhyme, we all know chubby chicks. Okay, chubby chicks, dimple chin, rosy lips, teeth within, curly hair, very fair, eyes are blue, lovely too, teacher's pet. Is that you? Yes, yes, yes. So when I was a school girl, we used to sing this poem very loudly, without any knowledge that it is replete with European standards of beauty. And now I understand that it is detrimental to the Indian child's psyche. And okay, but this is how actually our reading goes ahead and gives us a new or takes us to the new realms of understanding. Okay, so thus the more we read critically and inquisitively, the more we get engaged with idea presented in the text. This strategy makes us easier to monitor our own reading and understanding the text, that is what I am reading and what I am thinking, and also to recognize when I do not understand what I'm reading, and to know what to do when this occurs. So this strategy also monitors our own conclusions. So, well, we can take our reading further. We can talk about the book we have read with all its nuances to our friends or to our students, or send them the quotes from the books, or suggest the book if our areas of interest are alike, to solidify what we have understood from the book. This might encourage them to read book. Thus, we might form a chain of reading about which ELTAI is so concerned. Okay. Well, my another argument is not only self-questioning helps us comprehend the text. The prior knowledge of the context, socio-political, religious, cultural, historical, etc., also can help us to know the stated and unstated messages in the text. The general depth and breadth of our knowledge, background knowledge, is a critical factor in comprehension. Based on our prior knowledge, we can make well-considered judgments about the text, evidence-based judgments about the text. For example, there is a beautiful story by a renowned Hindi writer, Munshi Premchand. The story is Kafan. It is translated into English as The Shroud. It has also a film adaptation. There is a film by Gulzar on it. Okay, it is a story of very poor, lazy father and son duo who belong to Chamar community, the lowest among the untouchable classes. The son's wife dies during delivering a child, and there these lazy father and son, there they come to action. Their death actually stirs them to action. They enter the village. They plead for money so that they can buy a shroud for Budhia. Her name is Budhia. They do collect money from the village people, but ultimately, at the end of the day, they spend the money on sumptuous food and drink. Their manipulation to extract money and the way they lead their life, their attitude about everything, can be understood if we are well aware of the caste system in India, the exploitation of the untouchables, the impact of the treatment meted out to them by the upper caste on their psyche, and so on. So if I have a prior knowledge of all these things, I will understand the story in a right perspective. Otherwise, I will either deride them or I will laugh at them. Okay, if I go further for critically understanding this story or this whole area, I can also refer to Ranjit Guha, who discusses the subalterns and the subaltern studies. Even Gayatri Spivak's Can the Subaltern Speak? Or I can reread Mahashweta Devi's stories. So this is how we can enrich our reading experience. If we have a prior knowledge of the theme, it is well and good. If we do not, then it's better to read a related text and enjoy reading and debates over it. Hence, deliberately connecting to what we know helps us make sense of new information before, during, and after reading. Reading and understanding the message take us to altogether a new level of understanding. Thus, we can make our reading meaningful when we make text to text, text to self, and text to the world connections. I have said before that stories, plays, poems, and other types of fictional media often have some socio-political or cultural concerns or context embedded in the thematic background of a narrative, and they play a crucial role in the narrative. The context in which the book is produced shapes its words, images, and storyline. In fact, each story has connections to some or the other socio-political, historical context or events. The context makes such books timeless and the reading interesting. Though they are written somewhere in the past, their relevance is strongly felt even today. So reading beyond such books can be an amazing experience and enlightening one too. Okay, for example, George Orwell's novels, 1984 and Animal Farm. Animal Farm is an allegory. It is a story of animals who throw out their master because he exploits them, and they are made aware of their freedom by Old Major, one of the senior animals amongst them. But ultimately, they have to suffer exploitation from their own kind. So Orwell expresses his concern about cultural and political trends in the form of warning about how the future might develop. Written in 1945, that is after the Second World War, Orwell wanted to raise an awareness of the dangers of any totalitarian regime. So I call it a timeless book because it is very relevant today considering the socio-political scenario across the world. We find close resemblance in the characters of Animal Farm and the political figures and the strategies played today and in the past. Okay, to understand and enjoy this novel as a reader, we have to have the background knowledge of Russian Revolution, the revolutionaries, the Bolsheviks, the role of Tsar Nicholas, Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Trotsky, the propaganda department, and KGB established during Stalin regime, manipulation of religion, the devoted working class, skeptical people in and out of Russia, the stand of some European countries, etc., to comprehend and to do justice to the novel. We understand the meaning of the famous adage, all animals are equal, but some are more equal, only when we know its context. So if we identify the close resemblance, then only we enjoy reading the novel, wherein every page, rather every line matters. Moreover, as it comments on the totalitarian government, its strategies and impact, we might attempt to understand the features of other systems of government. Marxism, totalitarianism, communism, socialist, democracy, and how they are different from each other, or whether there are some similarities amongst them. So reading beyond the text is fun. That too, when we relate such kind of text to the contemporary issues happening around us across the world, or when we share our perspective with the author. So the book, the world of books is amazing, enchanting. Many a times books take us to the world we have never thought about previously or had any knowledge of. And we end up learning about something completely new, or something that exists at our subconscious level. Okay, and this might such kind of books might give us a life lesson. For example, I will also take another example. That is when we read Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. It makes us realize the absurdity of life, that nothing is definite. What is the ultimate truth? It's death, and everything is moha, maya, illusion. Or we also understand the philosophical concept of existentialism, or Martin Eslin's concept of absurd theater. Okay, when Beckett's characters struggle to answer the question, who am I? We relate this to the Indian philosophical idea of koham, very deep and subtle thought. Further, we can relate it to Descartes' philosophical idea, I think, therefore I am. Likewise, what is space and time? What is mind and matter? Or we can connect it to Paulo Coelho's the book Alchemist and his idea of existentialism. So, reading such books is an amazing experience. Okay, so considering our class situation, we all might agree that reading of the text should not be limited to the literal level of understanding. Okay, so as education and achievement standards put an increased emphasis on not only reading, but reading for understanding, it is becoming more and more important to understand how readers engage in high order interpretive reading processes. So, limiting the teaching learning only to reading of the book or answering the questions to pass the exam narrows down the wider aim of education, which is to nurture the potential of the student readers to the fullest and not stifling them to the confines of the book. It can take them beyond the four walls. I believe the practice of intense reading can alter students' overall view towards reading and thereby their understanding of the issues across the world. So, some of you might have read Mulkraj Anand's Untouchable, wherein the protagonist Bakha attends Gandhiji's speech and learns that the flush toilets will soon be arriving in India. So he's excited about the idea because it will eliminate one of his disgusting tasks, that is manual scavenging. Let the students know what manual scavenging is, whether it is still continued in India. Let them know that yes, it is still there in India, though it was banned in 2013, and some human rights organizations are fighting for the rights of these scavengers. Or similar, the plays like Vagina Monologues by Eve Ensler. She's an American playwright, performer, and a prominent anti-violence activist. And this play is a response to the guilt and embarrassment that many women across varied religions, languages, countries, cultures, age groups, professions still connect with their bodies or their sexuality. Let the students sensitize towards the violence on women as well as men, its causes, its impact, our fundamental rights to live, laws against sexual violence, and so on. Or there is a wonderful story, Acceptance, in the book edited by Sudha Murthy. And it is a story of how a working couple in Chennai who is in need of a babysitter accepts a transgender to babysit their child. Let the students understand the LGBTQ movement and so on. Actually, in our university, Dattani's play was there, and it was about this issue. So let the students understand what this movement is. Okay. I would go to my final slide. That is my final argument. That thinking all about this, the responsibility actually falls on our shoulder as teachers to sensitize our students towards the social issues. Actually, there are many. I have not taken. There are many actually I should have talked about, but because of this time constraint, I could not. So actually, there are many issues. By introducing and discussing such books with all its shades and taking them to another level of understanding is the responsibility of us, teachers. Reading diverse text will give them, I believe, give the students to that is another way of interacting with the key information and ideas in the text. Such reading will make them aware of various important issues and will instill a sense of responsibility in them. Inferences drawn from such kind of stories will let them learn to reflect on and realize the changes that are occurring to their understanding. Their new insights and perspectives about what they are reading will prepare them for life. This is what I believe. So then I believe ultimately, then only the purpose of our reading books will serve rightly. Thank you for your patient listening. Indusudhan?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you a lot, ma'am. Thank you a lot for the presentation. Now we move on to the Q&A session.
Yeah, sure.
We shall take a few questions from the participants, ma'am. Now, there is a question from one Srinivas Chiprashiti.
Yeah.
Let me broadcast the same for you.
Yeah.
Going beyond the texts is possible in works of literature. Is it possible to go beyond all types of texts?
Yes. Actually, we know there are many more genres. Actually, recently I came across one information, okay, about Constitution, Indian Constitution. Actually, many of us, I'm sure many of us, we have not, we might not have read the whole Constitution. But now we can, it is actually very interesting. There is a very interesting history of how the Constitution was written, how the Constitution was handwritten. Okay, so you can get this information on internet, but I believe that, or I think that if we read such kind of books, some or the other will strike us, and then we will go to find related related information which is referred in the text. So any text, anything is possible. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
The next question is from Dr. Ramani sir.
Yes, Ramani sir.
Yeah, from your clear and excellent illustration of the notion of going beyond the text, would you agree that wide reading leads to more meaningful and productive reading of further texts?
Of course, sir. It leads to more meaningful and productive readings of further texts. I have talked about it, sir, that actually we should text are there. Texts are there. Texts are in the libraries. Texts are around us. But we should approach the text. Even I mentioned one nursery rhyme. There is even even the proverbs, even the poems meant for children. Anything can lead us to more meaningful and productive readings. So, but it depends on how we read it and where we want to take our reading further, and whether we are really interested in knowing what the writer means, or forget about the writer, what I understand from this book. Yes, it leads. Thank you, Ramani sir.
Thank you a lot, ma'am. Thank you a lot for the lucid and bright presentation.
Thank you.
The key takeaways from the speaker are books are not isolated entities. They cannot be understood without contexts, social milieus, and personal experiences. The traceable sphere, the broader environment beyond the text, it was so good an observation, ma'am, from you. Only when we go beyond the text, we get the environment getting broadened, and only on going beyond the text, we get new realms open for us. Going beyond the text, it also lets us into the other spheres of knowledge, widens and as well strengthens our perspectives. Thank you a lot, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Indu for helping me. Thank you. Thank you, the participants and ELTAI once again.